views and opinions expressed in this program are those of the participants and do not necessarily reflect the views of BronxNet or the program underwriters.
Hey there, it is time for the Bronx Buzz. This is BronxNet's program where we talk to journalists, filmmakers, photographers, authors, all different kinds of people, anybody really who's putting something out in the borough of the Bronx, and give you some insight as to what they're thinking about and talking about and saying, and in some cases taking pictures of. And this evening, to start the program, we are going to say good evening to my longtime buddy, Bob Kappstatter. Some people know him as Bob. Some people know him as Cappy. Other people know him as very annoying. But he's still a really nice guy. How are you, Cappy? What's going on? You all right?
Oh, I won't tell you what people say behind your back.
That's right. We don't want to go any further than that. Listen, I named all these different types of people, journalists, photographers, etc. You're like all of those people. But tonight we're going to talk about some of the photographs. And I will ask you this. I mean, I've seen some of the latest stuff you've done. For people who don't know, Bob Kappstatter, former bureau chief at the Daily News, Bronx bureau chief at the Daily News, also was an editor at the Bronx Times Reporter, and a political gadfly, whatever you want to call it. He's really been around the Bronx. He knows the Bronx. But talk to me about the development of you as a photographer to the point where now you're really taking kind of artsy, interesting photos.
I've always loved photography for a long, long time. When I was in journalism school, I did a double major, reporting and photography. And I think I told you this story before. One day, Barry Goldwater came to campus, and I was assigned to cover him along with the rest of the paparazzi.
Where we have to say what school it was, what campus is that?
School of Journalism at the University of Missouri.
Okay.
So I'm running around with all the other paparazzi, trying to get pictures. So afterwards, I'm saying, wait a minute here. Two cameras hanging around my neck, a camera bag. I looked at my other hand, a pad and a pen in the other hand. Yeah, I think I'll go that way.
So you went in the way of being a writer and a journalist, and you still had those cameras behind you.
Well, yeah, the love and the interest was still there. And then, working at the Daily News with just amazing photographers for 43 years. Right. And seeing how they worked and the wonderful photos they got. And I still kept my hand in it, as an amateur. And lately I've just looked at some of my travel. I did a lot of travel pieces for the paper. I shot my own photos. So it's been sort of a culmination where I'm starting to get a little artsy with my stuff.
So let me just
black and white lately.
Well, that's what we're going to show tonight. But explain to me about what you actually use. Do you still use the old 35 millimeter, or are you like so many of us with your cell phone?
Well, it's a combination. It's so easy to have my cell phone handy, especially I got myself an upgraded model last December, just before I went down to Cuba, which is just so handy to carry around. I carry a couple of the big guns, the Nikons. I've got a smaller camera for just, walking around. It's a matter of if I know I'm going to shoot something specific, I'll take the big guns. If I'm just walking around, I'll walk with my cell phone out and set on photo. If I see something to grab.
As you might be able to imagine, what catches my eye when I see them, we are Facebook friends and everything else, and when I see photos that you do, you have been able to capture, in some ways, the essence of the borough of the Bronx. And I'm just curious, it's so hard to explain an artist's muse, so to speak, but explain to me what you look for when you go to an event and you say, this is the kind of thing that could be iconic, or, what is the thought process as you look through a lens?
Well, I think in large part it's just from being a reporter over all these years and being aware of details. You look for details to add to a story. Also, usually people take, photos from the front. I'll take photos from the back. I'll cut off heads of dancers.
Whatever it takes.
To leave people wondering, what is the story about this photo? What makes this photo? What's the psychology of this photo? I'm getting really deep here.
Hey, who's deeper than me?
Yeah, well.
But I promised you that we were going to get all the photos in, and so I want to let's take a look at photos.
Yeah.
Let's get this first one up, folks, and let's see what it looks like. All right,
Okay.
so this one,
This is white-haired woman
it's an amazing photo. Yes, this is the white-haired woman photo.
All right,
an amazing picture.
This was at the annual remembrance for the victims of the Happy Land Social Club fire in 1990. And this woman, she had lost 2 of her children in that fire. 87 people killed in that fire.
Of course.
And she was just overcome during the ceremony.
The ceremony was recently, so we're talking like 2019.
Well, yeah, they do it. I think this was from 2 years ago. I shot this. But it's an annual event.
Just to add some drama to it, 17 years later, she still couldn't stand up being there.
A lot of people were overcome at that ceremony, but I see this white hair and this black coats and just the whole the texture and the emotion of the photo. I said, and
tremendous.
I think I snapped a couple of shots, and that was the one that
this is tremendous.
Worked for me.
Yep, it's just tremendous, and now I'm overcome. Let's see the next
picture. You're
verklempt. Now this one is a short one. I guess I don't even want to guess because I'll say the wrong thing. Explain what it is.
This is one of my favorite ones. This was at a Three Kings festival at a church over in Castle Hill, and I see this little kid on his cell phone. Here's an angel on a cell phone. Who's he calling? St. Peter? It was just the contrast of an angel.
It's just tremendous. And then you look and you don't know if it's, let's say, a little person or it's like a man who just happens to look small and young.
Well, no, it's a kid.
It's actually a child. What a great photo.
But it's the angel on a cell phone shot that got me.
What a great photo. Keep going. What's next?
This was when.
Wait, hold on. They got to switch the photos. Here we go. This is a little girl.
Okay.
Yes.
Yep. Okay. This was at a district-wide spelling bee that Senator Sepulveda, who I was working for at the time, and City Councilman Ruben Diaz Sr. held. This is a couple of years back.
And so this was a girl like listening to other spellers.
And this is this little girl sitting up on the stage in the row of chairs, and she is just anticipating nervously.
Wow.
It's like
great
picture. Spell anticipation.
All right, let's get the next. I promise you I want to get them all, so let's get them all.
All right, here we go.
And that doesn't minimize the time it needs to look at each photo. These are just wonderful. All right, so this is a guy with a Yankee hat.
All right, so now this was over at Community Board Community Board 9.
One of the community boards.
One of the community boards. These people have been burned out of their
Oh, my goodness gracious.
Over at the community board with, the city agency representatives. But, I mean, I just, you look at these faces. They've lost their homes.
Well, and the two people that frame it are the gentleman holding the baby and the older mother, presumably a grandmother with a frown. Oh, and the young boy trying to make sense of it all.
Yeah.
We're not this is out of the ones you sent. This is my favorite photo. Boy, if this isn't a Bronx photo, I have never seen one before. This is just absolutely iconic for the borough of the Bronx.
Think about the 70s. Hey, we were there, right?
That's it. So who is
burning,
this? What
really
is this?
Burning. Yeah. All right. So are we on to the next one?
Yeah, this is that woman.
Oh.
Sorry.
Okay. Well,
I'm saying this one is my favorite photo.
Oh, okay, that one. Okay. Well, I don't have her phone number, so I can't fix you up. I'm sorry.
I was absolutely not suggesting it. I was just saying this is an iconic Bronx photo, especially with the guy on the left in a wheelchair. Fascinating.
Yeah.
Uh-oh, we're running
yeah.
out of time. Talk quick.
All right. So anyway, I love street festivals. There's so many great shots, and this was one of the great shots. She saw me shooting, and she just wanted to dance for me.
Wow.
Let's go to the next one.
And with
Okay.
the mural behind it, a Bronx mural behind it. What's next?
Right, that's over
here
over
we
on
go.
Morrison Avenue in Soundview. Okay.
Here's the Bronx people having a time.
Okay, here's a couple that was dancing at that same festival, and when I saw I took a bunch of photos to try and catch something from them, and when I looked at them, I saw the intensity and the focus of them as they're dancing.
Yeah, this
They're
was
so
serious
focused on their
business.
dance moves.
Right.
But it's at the same time. All right.
All right, go ahead.
And the last. Okay,
So are
and
we
the
going to
last
actually
photo.
get them all in? Wow, that'd be great.
Oh, wahoo! Okay, now guess who that is?
Well, we know that that's Mayor de Blasio.
Well, I think, didn't you say, somebody said they thought it was Governor Pataki, but okay.
No.
This is the standard politicians thing these days. You have to pose for selfies, or you have to, when you're at an
what
affair,
a
everybody
great
wants
picture.
their picture with you. So actually, every politician staffer is now assigned at these things. Give me your cell phone, pose with the politician,
Wow.
click next.
There you go. And you took it
look,
from behind.
Liz, yeah.
Bob
that's the show for
Kappstatter,
now.
I am going to give you applause. You know, we have students who are the first day as interns here from the Equality Charter School. We want you all to give applause for these great photographs.
Oh, stop.
All right. Well,
Send a
that's
check.
all I got.
Send a check.
It's the only people here. So anyway, Cappy, you will
Gary,
come
always
back.
good.
The best, man. The best. The absolute best.
Listen, I want to show you my Cuba stuff, man. I got some great stuff in Cuba.
We have an appointment. That'll be the next show. We're going to take a break.
There you go. When you're stuck for a guest, I'm available.
All
I'm
the
cheap.
kids from the charter school are waving me. I got to go to a break. See you later. All right, we'll be right back with an author, a Bronx author. Don't go away.
Sure, I look cute now, but when my owner lost his job, it was rough. I was living on the street, and one night, me and this Cocker Spaniel got into it so bad, I wound up looking like an ice cream cone. I cried a little bit, but thankfully I got rescued, so I'm running, I'm jumping, all back to my old self. And I'm ready to give unconditional love, even if you put a lampshade on my head.
It's not always easy being a dad.
Do you have panda asthma too? Does that run in the family? This is the home of the most priceless kung fu artifacts.
But when you make an effort,
Dad, we're not supposed to touch anything. Oh, sorry. Go along, son.
it's always worth it.
Whoa, master!
The smallest moments can have the biggest impact on a child's life. Take time to be a dad today.
I am gonna get you. I'm gonna get you.
Call 877-4DAD-411 or visit fatherhood.gov to learn more.
You know what, guys? There's a lot of tree branches and dry brush over here. We should probably move the bonfire over there.
I'm guessing Smokey liked that idea.
Hey, it's Ava, and this is Tess from Vivo's Do It Yourselfie, where we recreate the hottest looks from today's biggest music videos.
After cleaning out our closet, we have a lot of clothes we don't wear anymore.
Like this old t-shirt.
It's not garbage, it's actually a brand new rug.
And to make it, all you need to do is cut, tie, and glue.
Cut the t-shirt into strips.
Tie the strips into knots.
And glue the knots to the bath mat. I love it. Give your garbage another life.
And recycle.
Okay, back with you on the Bronx Buzz. We thank our good friend Bob Kappstatter for joining us. And now we are switching gears, as we often do, and we're going to bring in the author of this incredible children's book, I Can Write the World. It is Joshunda Sanders. Nice to have you with us.
Thank you for having me.
As you know, and we don't pretend on this program, I think this is a wonderful, wonderful book, and we're going to talk about it. Let's just introduce you to the people of the Bronx and why you wrote it and how you got to this point. Just talk about yourself as a writer and how it developed and how we got to this point.
Sure, yeah. So I have wanted to be a writer since I was 12 years old. A little bit older than Ava Murray, who's 8, who is the main character of the book.
Ava's the character in the book. Yes.
Yeah, so she's named for Ava DuVernay, and Pauli Murray, who is a scholar who would have been pretty much the first Black transgender person who sort of animated this legal precedent for Jane Crow. Or intersectionality, from sort of a legal standpoint. Anyway, she doesn't get enough attention. So
let's go back to you.
Yes,
and
me.
So you went to school and learned to write. Talk about that.
So I was fortunate that I started writing about my experience in the Bronx with my mom when I was a teenager, and I got a scholarship to go to boarding school, and also ended up at Vassar College, and that's where I really honed my craft and became a journalist in the early days of the internet, actually. And so I was asked by a fellow Vassar alum if I had an idea for a children's book, and that's how I Can Write the World was born. And it is essentially about a girl who sees the neighborhood around her very differently.
In the Bronx.
In the Bronx.
And I will mention it. You got I guess it's the train right there.
That's
3rd
the 6th
Avenue
train.
And the 6th train and 138th Street.
3rd
right
Avenue.
there. So
yes.
It's our home, folks.
Yes, illustrated by the wonderful Charlie Palmer, who actually is a fine artist based in Atlanta, and he came up to the Bronx with me and walked around the Bruckner, sort of Mott Haven
to get the ideas.
Areas. Yes.
So the girl grows up and sees what in the Bronx?
So she sees, she smells the Zaro's Bakery bread baking in the mornings, and she hears the salsa and the hip hop and the reggaeton from the cars below. She
sees the murals on the wall, the beautiful
murals.
graffiti that was originated here and developed here, of course.
Absolutely. So she was really soaking, as kids do, she's soaking in the culture of our borough. And she watches the news, or she overhears the news with her mom every morning. And so she's watching the news, and she sees a little girl about her age who gets arrested for putting up graffiti or tagging. And she asked her mom, well, why is she getting in trouble for that? She's trying to make it more beautiful here. And her mom says, well, if you look at the window frames everything that you see when you look outside of it. The window frame does that. And that's what journalists do. They're frames for what you see when you look out into the world. And so Ava says, well, yeah, that's, I want to do that. I want to be a journalist then. And so her mom tells her, graffiti and hip hop all came about because of the lack of arts funding in public schools when she was a kid. So that's using your creativity to tell stories that otherwise wouldn't be told is the birth of hip hop. It's the core of the Bronx.
This story is really the core of journalism, where you have a story that is untold and you want to tell it. And what makes it, I think, even more dramatic is that it strips away everything, and it's an 8-year-old girl who is incredibly impressionable and is like, wait a minute. They taught me to love where I grew up.
Yes.
They taught me to love where I'm from. And I turn on the TV and I see these horrible stories. She tries to make sense of it, and the conclusion is that she comes out to be a writer.
Yes.
You got that?
Yes.
Let's talk about the book itself and the writing of it. Is it one of those things where, now, if you had the idea, it's completely logical and you just spit it out, or did you spend a lot of time with it? And did you consider, for example, making it for younger children or making it for older children? I mean, just talk about the gestation of the craft itself.
So I was a journalist for 20 years.
Yes.
I mean, I've been a journalist for 20 years. I was a newspaper journalist for 11. And so the story concept is, in a way, autobiographical. In that sense, it was pretty easy to just, write a couple of fresh drafts. Yes, to just spit it out, as you say. But the crafting of it, because I've not written for young readers before, was a little bit harder. I had to remember kind of I don't think children are as oblivious to the things that adults think they are. I think they observe a lot more, they take in a lot more than we give them credit for. And so I had to remember that sort of maturity, I think especially in the Bronx, right? Because we do have some really heavy things happening all the time.
And I have to tell you, I mean, I've raised my own children in the Bronx. The kids know. I mean, they may not know, the specifics that we all unfortunately have to deal with every day, but they know what people look like. And if you grow up in the Bronx, you can sense it. If you ride with mommy to Fordham Road on the bus every day, then you see the people coming on and you have a sense even at the age of 8, and that's, to me, that's the gestation of us being street smart. I mean,
absolutely, and we also can see the beauty of our borough. Those of us who are from here, who live here, who grew up here, outside of this place, outside of the Bronx, people don't always know what it is. They confuse us with Brooklyn. I lived in California or Texas for a long time. So people will just be like, oh, they just think all the B boroughs are the same, I guess, right? But we know, I'm like, well, the Bronx is the only borough that's on the mainland of the continuous United States.
There,
so like, everything else is an island.
You know what somebody told me very recently about that is that everybody who has to go into New York City, if they're coming from the mainland, has to come through. I mean, of course, if they're coming, over the bridges is one thing, but if they're going to drive through or take a train through,
you got to come through the Bronx. Yes, and there's such a rich history here, and hip hop is a great entry point for that. I think it's certainly a culture I grew up with in the 80s and 90s here, but also it's just helpful. It's a helpful metaphor for reminding people that. What you see is not necessarily what you get. Just because you only know one section of the Bronx doesn't mean you know the entirety of the rich history.
This is such a core. I'm just going to hold it up. We're going to do it informally. I mean, and these are what some of the pictures. And there's I guess with a police officer. I mean, it really tells a very dramatic story about what's going on. So if you'll forgive me, I pulled out a quote that was written by you, and I just pulled it out. I didn't read the whole thing yet, but it says, "Everything we make is connected to the past," Mom says. "It's how you make the art you love last." Talk to me about the nature of art in the borough and the role it has. Now, I'll seed the clouds here a little bit and tell you that I believe that Bronx culture will save the Bronx, and all these other things that I interview people about won't mean as much as doing things like this. So talk to me about the past and the art and how that kind of puts together in our borough.
So I think that there's a really rich, amazing history here. I mean, a lot of people don't know that James Baldwin went to DeWitt Clinton High School with Richard Avedon, right? They don't know the history of Grace Paley, who was one of the first state poet laureates here. So there's this...
a living history of Supreme Court Justice Sotomayor.
Yes.
Of course, being from, core Bronxite.
Yes, Sonia Manzano, of course. They were the
Bronx. We could sit here all night.
Yeah, we could talk for a really long time. But, I always think of the Bronx as, in the broader imagination of the country, as being sort of the underdog borough, right? It's kind of an underdog city. And what I love about that spirit, the underdog spirit, is that we always root for the underdogs, right? Because we want them to win. And so there is that sort of winning spirit, I think, in the art and the resilience of the artists who are visionary.
You have hit the nail on the head, and I talk with journalists on this program literally every week. And one of the things the joys that we get and the joys that I get doing these TV shows on BronxNet and in the Bronx is that it's undiscovered territory.
Yes.
That we have this culture that nobody knows about, and that we can all walk into a deli and know who the people are, and we would even just talk to each other because that's the way we are.
Yes, and even the way we speak to each other is an art, right?
So let's just talk about the book. So now the book is out.
The book is out. It was published in July.
Okay.
Sorry, in January.
All right, so we're getting there. That must have been incredible. This is your first book?
This is my fifth book.
Fifth book,
It's my
okay.
first book in the children's book series, so there will be a book 2 and hopefully a book 3 of I Can Write the World. I'm working on the
Really, you're
second
gonna
book now.
extend this?
It's a children's book series.
Wow. And just for parents who might be watching to say, well, gee whiz, this is exactly what and I believe it is exactly what you want to talk to your kids about, certainly about the world around them and our borough around them. What ages really do you think are best? I mean, believe me, any child you want to tell the story to, go right ahead. but really, you know, who did you really think about? 8-year-olds? Is that what
I was thinking about, you know, the 4 to 8-ish, you know, mature 4-year-olds into 8 or 9 even. But I think it's resonated with some adults as well, I've heard.
Well,
so.
it resonated with this adult, I could tell you that. Although when it comes to the BX, maybe I'm just a child at heart.
Yes.
And so people can find it online.
You can find it online, wherever books are sold.
You and I were just talking about the Lit Bar, which is our
Bar.
bookstore now in the Bronx.
And if the Lit Bar doesn't have it, or if other independent bookstores don't have it, you can order it on IndieBound, Barnes & Noble, of course, you know, the Big A, Amazon.
Just so people know, and I think people are always curious about who people are. You talked about other books. What was your other writing? I mean, to me, this is all I need.
Thank you.
Especially for kids. But talk about some
you.
of your other writings so people get a little more depth of who you are.
Yeah, so I'm kind of a hybrid writer, right? So this is my second traditionally published book. The first was a textbook called How Racism and Sexism Kill Traditional Media, Why the Future of Journalism Depends on Women and People of Color, and that was published by ABC CLIO in 2015. And then I self-published a memoir called The Beautiful Darkness, a handbook for orphans.
So I guess the bottom, we can go further, but we're running out of Joshunda Sanders. You could look her up online and find out all that kind of stuff. And in particular, I Can Write the World, and then 1, and then 2 and 3, and who knows how many.
Yes,
depending,
hopefully many more.
Depending how fruitful we can make it in the Bronx. Thank you so much for joining us,
Thank you.
Joshunda.
Thank you for having me.
Good luck with the book. I'm thrilled with it. This is so core to the borough of the Bronx.
Thank you.
And I hope parents will get it and read it and take it out of the library, whatever you got to do. Let's get our kids to understand who we are.
Thank you so much. Thank
Great.
you.
Guess what happens now? We say goodnight. We're going to end the show. And I guess we'll see you next week. Bronx Talk Monday night, we might be doing a environmental program about Hunts Point, but I don't want to give it away because we're still putting it together. Anyway, have a great weekend. Good night.